Good morning and welcome to the studio. How are you? Hey, I'm here. I'm Diane Pruitt. We are in the studio at Two Girls Treasure in Florence, South Carolina. If you are visiting the area throughout the summer, stop in. We're about a mile off I-95, no matter whether you're going north or south. Stop in and say hello. Check out our amazing collection of vintage home furnishings and decor. Check out our beautiful display of Rethunk Junk paint by Laura and Iron Orchid Designs. Don't forget Salt Wash and Decoupage Central Papers. We have it all under one roof, and we have a studio. I am so thankful and blessed to have this space to be able to come to you, talk with you, teach you, show you the things that I have learned to do and not to do. We did this beautiful kitchen cabinet in true gray yesterday. I did not do the insides of the doors, but I do have the entire piece covered in 2.5 coats of true gray. What is the other half? I just simply went back in, and after my second coat, I sprayed the entire piece with a misty coat of water and then brushed over it one more time with true gray just to smooth everything, make sure I had everything covered and there were no nicks and dings and dirt and scuffs, and everything was beautiful. What do you do now? Well, there's 3 P's. There are 3 steps to using Rethunk Junk paint by Laura. You prep your project using literally the prep. This little 16-ounce bottle of goodness is all you need to start your project. If you're working on kitchen cabinets, spray it, scuff it clean with a Scotch-Brite pad, spray it one more time, and clean it with a dry rag to make sure you have no grease, no residue, no little baubles from the Scotch-Brite. So your surface is perfectly ready for you to paint. You saw that yesterday once we sprayed the prep. You could literally see the tone of the finish on this cabinet change completely. Prep does its job. All you have to do is use it. You don't even have to overwork it. Just spray it on, wipe it clean, get ready to paint. Well, your second step is to paint. And in this instance, we used our true gray. We used a combination of our Miracle brush, our Wooster 2-inch shortcut brush, and I used one of my Blue Hawks just for old time's sake. We can't get those anymore, but they are one of our old time favorites. What do we do now? Well, no matter what we're going to do, we want to personalize our protection. We've worked on this. We have put a little bit of elbow grease down, some time and effort, and it looks so good, especially if this is going in a kitchen or a bathroom. You definitely want to make sure that you protect this. And we have a plethora of protectants. Let's talk about them for a minute, but I'm going to put some sealant on this while we do. This is going to be our low luster. Now, can you see the runs as I'm putting that on? Our Rethunk Junk paint sealants are water-based, just like our paint. So if you get ready to put these on and you have your brush loaded, it's going to run down your project, and if you don't catch those drips and runs, then you'll have a pool of protectant when you're done. Check yourself frequently for drips and runs. It is always better to do a couple of thin coats of protectant rather than doing one great big heavy coat. Now, I'm brushing it on, but you see me using a stain pad? When I'm doing a vertical surface, my preference is to use the stain pad, even if it's in combination with a brush. And here's why. My brush is always going to have extra material, and it's hard to chase all those drips and runs. If I have a stain pad instead, I can actually dip the top of my stain pad, get a good load on my stain pad, and then I can just simply wipe my sealant onto my vertical surface, and I do not have the drips and runs problem that I experienced when I had the brush. Now, when you're doing doors and drawers, trust me when I say this, open them up, because our sealants are very strong, which is what you want because you want your piece protected. But if you don't open the doors or drawers, you actually risk gluing them shut with the Tuff Top. I'm going to go ahead and finish Tuff Topping the areas that we painted. Just this little inside ridge all the way around and back down. Now I do have some overbrush on the inside of these doors. When I get done, all I need to do is take one of my alcohol wipes and wet this, or I can take water. I'll take my straight blade and I'll just scrape that off. Otherwise, I really could just take the paint the insides of the doors. If I leave them unsealed, they become chalkboards, so that my people can write on the inside of my cabinet door that we're out of peanut butter before we're out of peanut butter for 3 weeks. All right, I'm gonna spin this and seal the side. Just a nice little smooth, even swipe. It's easy to miss a spot. I have a tendency to stand in the light where I can see the reflection, see the cast of the light over the paint, so I can make sure that I'm sealing all of my surface. I'm going to dip one more time just to get enough. And we're going to go ahead and seal this outside edge as well. It looks so beautiful. But what if you want a little bit more depth of color? What if you want a little bit of antiquing? What if you want just a little bit of translucent color over this? You want a little bit more? We have you covered. Let me close up my sealer and move it out of the way, and I'll show you. This morning, this is our studio bag of personalized protection. If you're watching live, or if you are watching on #replay, this is an important part. Pay attention, because at the very end, of course we always save the best part for the last, but you're really going to want to hear this whole part, I promise. In our bag of protection options and personalized protection options, we have, let me put my glasses on, our antique brown glaze. This is an absolutely beautiful glaze. If you want to give your piece a little bit of extra depth, if you want it to look old and a little bit antiqued, a little bit crusty, or you just want those details to pop, our glazes are the way to go. We also have soft white glaze, and this is an absolutely beautiful finish over so many different colors. Now, of course, over your lighter colors, it's not going to have that stark contrast like your antique brown or your classic black glaze will have. But you can soften the look of any of the lighter colors with your soft white glaze. Our last, and probably one of the toughest decisions, no, we have two more. One of the toughest decisions I ever make is whether to use classic black or antique brown. Our classic black glaze came out a few years ago, and it is exactly what it says. I have a hard time choosing between the two of these, but I have to say, although The antique brown is our standard. It was our very first glaze. The introduction of classic black changed the game. Now, what if you want something completely different? Not brown, not black, and not white. What if you want purple glaze? You can do that too. We have tintable glaze. This is so simple and easy to use. It has the properties, the texture, and the finish of glaze. It is a white base, but you can add any color to your tintable glaze and create your own. The caveat is, if you use red, expect that it's going to turn just a little bit pinkish because this is a white base. Every other color, it will lighten gently because it's a white base, but you can create your absolutely own personalized finish using tintable glaze. We have 4 glazes in the family of Rethunk Junk Paint by Laura. Those are the glazes. Now, what else can you do? If you just want a standard clear coat over the top, we have our Tough Top in low luster, satin, and semi-gloss. This was introduced this year, Tough Top in semi-gloss. This is amazing. All of our Tough Tops were reformulated thanks to Mr. Tom Whitlow. These are wonderful to work with. Let me spin this around so you can see. We have the label on the front. Always check your lid to make sure you're using the right one. This is low luster. That will give you your matte finish, your farmhouse finish that you love so well. This is satin. The paints are a satin finish anyway, but in order to protect them, you can clear coat them with our Tough Top in satin. And finally, semi-gloss. If you want just a piece of shine, this is your sealant right here. Well, what if you want a little bit more than that? Don't worry, we have you covered. With our Rethunk Junk Paint products, we actually have a product called Wash, Wax Alternative Sealer and Hardener, and it is available in 5 different finishes. This is one of my all-time favorites. It is called Sea Glass, and it gives you just a touch of translucent color, but it has a sealer and a hardener in it so that when you're done, it helps cure your paint. It hardens quickly so you have a rock solid finish, and that's important, especially if you're working on kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanities. Vintage white, you know, this one is absolutely perfect over a white finish or any of your lighter colors because it just blends in, gives you a hint of color, but a rock solid finish. Vintage white is perfect over any of your darker colors because it gives them an aged vintage white finish. This is Warm Stone. It's kind of a milk chocolate finish, and it looks stunning over some of your lighter colored neutrals. It's not going to show so much over your darker colors, although it does work. But your lighter tones work very well with your Warm Stone wash. Just a touch of chocolate brown. I'm going to save this one for last. And speaking of brown, this one is called Rich Brown. Now you see how much darker this is than the Warm Stone. You can also layer these over the tops when you're doing a dresser or whether you're doing a nightstand or a side table. You can actually layer these over the top of your stains or your paint and get an absolutely fantastic wooden looking finish. This is Rich Brown, and it is a beautiful wash finish. Now my favorite, my all-time pirate favorite, is Black Pearl. Black Pearl is a nice rich black undertone, but it is very lightly applied. If you want a heavier finish, apply 2 or 3 coats. There's no rule when it comes to your washes, accept what you love. Now, I have just introduced you to all 5 washes, all 4 tints, and all 3 sheens of our Tough Top. You can get them all in a fabulous studio bag. When we go off the air today, I want you to reach out to me by messenger through our Facebook page or our website, either one. And I want you to tell me that you love to personalize your protection. Make sure you use that phraseology so that you can get this entire bag of detail work and protection for 20% off. Shh, don't tell the boss. All right, we're gonna set this studio bag to the side. Our Tough Top should be dry by now. So we're gonna close the door, spin this around, and let's talk about glazing, because there are several different ways for you to work with your glaze. Now, I have a damp, tough-topped stain pad, and I have a dry stain pad. Let me scoot you back just a little bit. And a spray bottle of water. So what I'm going to do is dampen my stain pad with my water. I don't want it saturated, I want it damp. Now, I use a stain pad to do this, but use a terry cotton cloth, use an old washcloth, an old dishcloth that's terry, or I also, depending on the finish I want to see, use a paper towel. This is a rough surface paper towel. If you're going to use one, make sure you dampen it. If you're using a softer version paper towel like your big name brands, they have a tendency to pick up too much of the glaze, but that's their job. Use the cheap stuff. It doesn't take your glaze back off. But what if I want to glaze just my architecture? Well, I'll teach you a little trick that I learned quite some time ago. You see these fabulous picnic ketchup bottles? Well, this is classic black, and this is antique brown. You can use these, and this is actually for your hair. This one's for ketchup. You can actually trim the top of these to the diameter that you want, and then you can pinpoint your glaze exactly where you want it. Let me show you how. Turn your bottle over, put your tip into your corner, make sure your glaze is fully in the cap, and run a beautiful bead line of glaze all the way around your architecture. Don't squeeze too hard, because if you squeeze too hard, you'll run your glaze and then you'll have it in places you don't intend to. Let your glaze sit up for just a minute or two before you touch it, because if you allow it to tack up, you won't be wiping so much of it back off. Let it tack up for a minute, let it seat itself into those crevices, and then once it sets up for a minute, then take hold of it and move it around. Now, the other way that you can work with your glazes is to take a brush. You can mist your bristles and then take your glaze and just put a little bit on your bristles and brush it on where you'd like to see it. It is not the same as just squeezing it on. You get a much wider pattern. It goes in a lot of places, and you may want glaze all over your surface. If you do, that's okay. It's perfectly fine for it to look just like this. But again, once you apply your glaze, You want to give it just a minute to tack up. This actually gives you time to move to the next section. When you're applying glaze, unlike your paint, you don't want to do all over your surfaces. If you do, your glaze will dry quickly and you won't have time to work it. What I have also found is that when you are working glaze, if you'll seal your project surface first, your glaze moves a little bit smoother and you have a little bit more open time to work with the product, because glaze does dry quickly. Now we have a lot of product, and even when I brushed over it, it moved that product around. Don't worry, grab another paper towel or another terry rag. Make sure you mist it. You want it damp, not saturated, but you want it damp enough to help you pick up the extra material that you really didn't intend to have. And just go around your edges, turn your cloth frequently, and wipe that back a little bit. You want it in your grooves. Maybe you want it all over, but if you only want it in your grooves, your damp paper towel or your damp cloth will help you remove or erase back the glaze that you don't want, and it will help you get a nice clean finish in your architecture, and not all over your surface. One more clean wipe right there, and that is a beautiful finish. Now, if you got somewhere you didn't intend and it doesn't all erase back, that's okay, don't panic. Take a detail brush with your original paint color and just lightly skim over it. Now this side, we put it all over. If we want to erase some of that back, do the same thing. Take your damp paper towel or your damp cloth and erase some of it back. Now, glaze dries quickly, and this did, so I'm going to mist it with water. All of our glazes are water-based, just like the paint. So if you ever need to erase back after you've put it on, because you've gotten it places you didn't really want it, or you don't like the way it looks right there, or you just want to dirty it up, grunge it up a little bit, just simply spritz it with some water, take your rag, roll it frequently, shake your paper towel back out, roll it over, and keep erasing back. If you find that it's not erasing the way you want it to, reconstitute it with more glaze. Brush it over. The areas that are dry, go just a little bit at a time, and then wipe back the glaze you don't want and keep the glaze you do. Again, if you find that you have too much glaze or you don't really like the finish that you put on, let it dry and then take your paintbrush and your original color and just paint back over it. The beauty of the glaze and the paint is that as they work together, they work together. If you don't like the finish, it's okay. It's just paint, it's just glaze. All you have to do is go back over it again. Now, what if you want a really heavily glazed finish? Well, then do this. Go ahead and run your glaze all over your surface. Let's go ahead and grunge this completely on this side. Cover every bit of what you want to see that glaze on. Throw caution to the wind and just put it all out there. Run that glaze all over your surface. Cover every inch of what you want covered. To do this, I will actually use a cloth as opposed to a paper towel most of the time. Today, for time's sake, because I'm picky about the cloth I use, I'm going to use another piece of paper towel. There are so many different ways you can do this. Let's dampen our paper towel entirely, and once we have it nice and damp and we have our classic black glaze all over our true gray door, we can do two different things. We can wipe it up and down and get a vertical finish with our glaze, just like that. Turn your cloth frequently so you don't build up the glaze. Down around your surface, around your edges. Or if you want a cloudy finish, ball your cloth up and tamp off what you want to see come off. Now this is really grungy, really heavily glazed. It is a fantastic finish. To lighten or soften that, just repeat your process. You get a really fabulous Corinthian finish when you do it this way. No matter which way you choose to personalize your protection, you have so many options when it comes to Rethunk Junk paint products. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do this. It is just glaze. You can, and you can do it any way you vision it and make it look amazing. If your cloth starts to dry or you're getting too much buildup, well, just take it, turn it over. Caught that, didn't I? Missed it again. Get a little bit more moisture on your cloth, on your rag, ball it up and go some more. If your glaze starts to dry on you, mist it over. That's really all you need to do. But what a fantastic finish over true gray, our classic black glaze looks. I absolutely love the way this works. And you will get a fabulous aged grungy look so simply and easily. Don't forget your keyword in your message if you would like a studio bag full of personalized protection options to add to your toolkit. You just send me that message and we will make sure you get a bag full of personalized protection from Rethunk Junk paint products. Thank you for joining me this morning for our glazing demonstration. It's Wednesday and we will get started on a brand new project tomorrow. Don't forget Saturday, Father's Day make and takes. You haven't gone and gotten anything? Don't go to the store. Come to the studio and let the kids create something fabulous for their dads. I'm Diane Pruitt in the studio at Two Girls Treasure in Florence, South Carolina. Stop in anytime to see us. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful afternoon. Please continue to pray for Ed and take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I'll see you right back here real soon. Bye, y'all.